Anthony Newby, I'm the director of NOC, and I'm proud to say that this event was put together entirely, exclusively by organizers and volunteers.
My name is Michael McDowell. I'm the transit organizer here at Neighborhoods Organizing for Change. As a transit rider, I noticed that people who ride this system and use it as their main source of transportation were not being engaged. Even though Metro Transit had an online survey and a spot in the front of the bus where you could give input. And when I asked people if they had heard about this online survey, most of them said no. The people who said yes were usually white, which I was not okay with because white doesn't reflect our state's transportation system. I ride the bus every day and I see a whole lot of people of color, black, Mexican, just majority people of color. So the people whose input really matters weren't being engaged. So I created my own survey and started canvassing on the buses and asking people what they wanted to see change in the system. Riders said things like, the cost of fare is an issue and it's too high, there aren't enough shelters with heat, and that there aren't enough shelters in general. Also, better service in urban areas like the north side is a want. Riders noticed the drastic difference between service and amenities in other parts of the city like uptown and south side, and how the service is significantly better and they have more amenities at their stops than north. This meeting was put together to bring transit riders' voices to the table and have them speak directly to the Met Council, the people that make public transportation happen. The buses literally say a service of the Metropolitan Council, so that's why they're here. Okay. So equity has been a word said a lot in debate around the Southwest Light Rail, but a lot of the conversation has been dominated by Kenilworth folk and shallow tunnels. They have been able to throw their weight around because they have money. We're pushing for greater equity coming out of this project for the north side. I guarantee once the Southwest Light Rail is built, Minnetonka, Eden Prairie, and these other suburbs will be pushing for and receive nice amenities and service like all suburbs do. If this project is about regional equity, what does the north side get? Equity is about everyone getting their fair share. We need more than Minnetonka and Edina. We've needed it far before the Southwest Light Rail project became a hot topic. Let's hear from the transit riders and the people who use this system on a daily basis. What do they want? What do they need? And what do they deserve?
So our first question will be about equity. Asking the question will be Octavia.
Hello, how's everybody? My name is Octavia and I'm fairly new to the city. I've lived here for 1 year and 5 months now. And the whole 1 year and 5 months I've lived over north. And my question is about equity. Equity is a word that has been thrown around a lot in the discussion around the Southwest Line Rail. And one of my questions is we want to know what equity means to the Met Council and transit riders. Also, what does transit equity mean and look like to you? And how can we move and sync around equity?
All right. Is there a Met Council member that would like to?
Sure, I can take that. Not this week. So I represent District 7. The remarks I'm making are my own and are not representative of the Met Council. So your question is great. Because I think people get confused about what equity means. A lot of people think it means equality.
No.
And some people think it means we're going to talk about it and do the same thing we've been doing. And for my position on the Metropolitan Council, I've been working on equity since I walked in the door there. And equity means people of color having a seat at the table to determine and be part of that determination of what the future of this community will be. From my position, equity means that not only are we talking about equal access to opportunity, which is important and an important principle, but we're also making sure that that historic legacy of denied opportunity that has been perpetuated based on race within this community gets addressed. Equity means that we have to go beyond just talking about we're going to provide equal, or we're going to provide you a stop on the southwest line, or 2 stops on the southwest line. Equity means that we really must think about what is the economic development that's going to be agreed to and the investments that are going to be agreed to so that we can create jobs and opportunities directly in this community. Equity means we need to be able to create circulator routes so that people can get to those stops. Now, I was just in Southside Chicago, and I was there, and they have, I was riding the L, and in the Southside, they got to stop, but I don't see any equity. All right, and so just to say that we got stops and we got a train going through our area doesn't equate to equity. So what we have to do is ensure that future transit investments that happen in a way that benefit this community. The Metropolitan Council just finished a fair housing and equity assessment that identified areas within our region that we call racially concentrated areas of poverty. Now, these areas didn't just spring up. These areas happen because of systematic disinvestments. They happened in part because of the planning and development that occurred historically has put low-income people and concentrated them in one area of our city, several areas, but this area in particular. And it's happened because of public policy. And so if it took public policy to get us here, it's going to take public policy to move us out of here. Part of what I'm focused on is concrete things that can be done that transform the conditions of our community. I grew up here, I'm a part of this community, so whatever happens on this line, we have to ensure that it isn't the same old thing. That in fact, we can do better and we can do it differently, because this is about access to opportunity. Not just access to opportunity to move you out and send you out to eat prairie. That's important, we need that access. But this is about access to opportunity to invest right here in this community. So equity translates into opportunity.
I'll have 2 minutes for the panel to respond if you'd like to address that.
Yeah.
David?
Thank you for that information, which everything that he said is true. But not only that, but we just want to try to make this, like you say, a one Minnesota. So if we can make this a one Minnesota, that means putting north side with the south side, uptown, northeast, Eden Prairie, Crystal, and all of those places. If they can have all the nice things, we want all those nice things too. So let's just make it an equal one Minnesota. If we all can apply amenities they have over there, we'd like to have those amenities over here too, because we deserve it too.
All right. Thank you so much. I noticed a lot of people taking pictures, so if you're posting any photos or anything on social media, let's use the hashtag OurTransitMN. All right, so we're going to move on to our next question. The next one will be from Emily.
I do have the amenities question. I do ride the bus every day. I take 30 now. It's an awesome line. I work over in St. Paul. I live in northeast Minneapolis, and I come over north Minneapolis probably 2 or 3 times a week. So what happens in north Minneapolis absolutely affects my way of living in Minneapolis, and it keeps me living in this city. One of the things, though, on Metro Transit's website, they say that in order for a shelter to be added to a bus stop, ridership needs to be more than 40. For a heated shelter to be added, it needs to be more than 80. So Northside Minneapolis fulfills all of those requirements. Almost every bus here does, but Metro Transit doesn't meet those needs all the time. So what will the Met Council do to start meeting those needs on the north side? Heated shelters, better lights, security cameras, and trash cans.
I'll do my best to respond to that. It's something that we're in the process of doing an inventory on right now. One of the things that we haven't done, I think, a good job of on an ongoing basis is doing a service improvement program, which is what we're doing now, our SIP Regional Service Improvement Program. And we actually had a committee of the whole meeting where we were talking about the investment plan that we do, our capital investment plan, and somebody asked the question, it may have been me or Councilor Cunningham, but someone said, do we use the information from our SIP to inform where it is we invest our money? And the answer was, well, we haven't really done that, but that's the direction we're going. And so it's not the best answer today, but my answer to you specifically and to everybody in this room is, I want to fight like heck to find out where the investments are going now and then where they can and should be going in the future, because that gets to Councilmember Cunningham's point about equity and how we invest in shelters, amenities, public safety, all those things. We have a real challenge with prioritization. It's something that we're going through with our transportation policy plan right now. I think what it is we oftentimes think of is how do we prioritize which corridors we're going to invest in. We prioritize this one over that one, or the bigger capital projects, and we think about those over here, but meanwhile we don't think about the operations and maintenance of what it is we have and how many riders we can gain and how much support we can get from the community by improving the maps, improving the shelters, improving access, and doing some of those types of activities. And we can do that through a number of different channels, through our own capital improvement program, through the TAB, the Transportation Advisory Board. And so that is what we're working towards. And I'm here to say I'm willing to do everything I can to make sure that we improve those standards.
My name is Caleb Murphy, and you mentioned that you have to take from one community to give to another community based on like the demand, essentially. What I have seen, however, has been diametrically different than that, because when I walk down Marquette, downtown, I see these beautiful shelters with heaters and scrolling marquees and all that, and then I see the shelter that comes over here, the one that was on the video, that was built after those, which means they knew what they were doing, and it's like in the video it said, it's a rinky-dink shelter, it's tiny, there's no heaters, and there are way more people that come over here much more often than go to the suburbs.
Yeah, I'd like to respond. You know, I mean, the fact of the matter is that most of the people riding the bus, our largest bus ridership is on 5, the 9, the 19. And these are buses that are taking people of color. The majority of the people taking the buses, or the greatest proportion, I should say, are African American. Many of them are coming from this community. So if you've got a customer base, and you say your customer that you really are about your customer, then if in fact we're the backbone of the system, then we should get access to these shelters. We should get access, and I mean now. Right. Not tomorrow, not next week. We can't wait on somebody else to say something else. This isn't about zero sum, because we're all in this together. Right?
Yeah.
If people in North Minneapolis don't do well, it harms the whole city. If our kids don't do well in school, it harms the whole city. Our competitiveness, our regional competitiveness against the world is at stake here. And so if we continue down the road we're on, we will continue to get what we've been getting. I want an advisory committee of people of color to make recommendations directly to the Metro. People of color have a voice. That's right. Right? So we need it. Now, every advisory committee on the Met Council, the majority of them don't look like the people in this room. And we know that. And there's a committee, a working group, trying to address that right now. But part of that is we got to have a seat at the table.
That's right.
Thank you.
That's right. I'll let you get in, then I'll go to the next question.
Just two quick things. We have made tremendous progress in terms of trying to bring better representation of the community to the table. Kenya McKnight from the north side has been an amazing member of TAB and is the loudest champion for equity on the TAB. She does a great job, and she's really involved in the regional solicitation work that's had an impact on the conversation we just had. And to directly respond to your RSIP question, we want NOC engaged. In fact, when I first talked about this meeting, we tried to do it a little earlier, and Anthony said we're staffing up, we're hiring a transit organizer, can we do it later, and still use it to inform the RSIP, and we're going to do that. We're adopting that soon, but we're going to make sure there's community engagement, and I totally agree with Councilmember Cunningham's point about let's have an advisory committee, both for the RSIP, but also just for ongoing work that we're doing at the council. It's really important.
Thank you, both of you. That was great. That was great. We're going to move on to the next question. It's about fares. And we have Caleb once again. Go ahead, Caleb.
Over 300 transit riders that were surveyed have expressed that fare is an issue and has actually become a barrier to them, especially when using a public service. And the fare is actually, it's especially a strain as a low-income urban transit rider who uses public transportation as my only means of transportation. This fare has increased steadily over the years and actually increases during rush hour time, which makes no sense to me at all. I believe that we should have certain things like either like a free or like a reduced fare zone like there is on Nicollet Mall. I believe that we should have an increase in the transfer times. 2.5 hours is not nearly enough. And especially when, the fares have risen and the transfer times have stayed the same. So I'm paying more for a ride that lasts the same amount of time. In a carnival, that wouldn't fly. And I believe we want an overall drop in fares by at least 25 cents. And me personally, I want to know why there can't just be one steady fare throughout all day long. It doesn't need to go up, especially when you're getting more people coming on the bus. You're making more money and then also charging more. So I want to know what the Met Council is going to do about this.
We've talked about fair policy at Fairmont last year, and the original conversation brought to us by staff was to look at fair increase. And a number of us internally said, no way, like that can't be on the table at all. We pushed that off for a time. We're going to revisit the idea of a fair policy change later this year, and so we'll want to be engaged with you all on that. A couple things. One is we are definitely looking at going to standardizing the fare so that there's not a peak fare and then not off-peak fare. I think that's smart. That's what we should do. Therefore, since the peak fare is the one paid the most, it will ultimately, hopefully, be a fare reduction for most folks. That's the goal. Secondly, on North Star Commuter Rail, we've actually lowered fares on a number of stations and kind of tried to monitor what the ridership is, and it has increased enough so that our fare box recovery is better than what it was with a higher fare. Exactly. And that's the case study I've been pushing our staff to say, look, we can actually potentially lower fares, increase the ridership, and potentially still make money, still be able to provide the service we have to do. So I'm with you 100%. I like the idea of looking at certain corridors as maybe reduced fare corridors, or there be a zone. I think that makes a lot of sense. The time in which the transfer card is valid, I don't know if we really looked at that. That's something we should look at, but I appreciate the suggestions.
Any further response from the panel? All right. I'd just like to take a moment to recognize the hard work that Michael has done. On the side over here, we have surveys that he has done over the last few months. This is getting out there in the cold, in the rain, talking directly to transit riders and asking them what they want to see change. And so if you have a moment during this afternoon, take a look at these and see all the different responses we have. And give Michael a hand for his work. All right, we have one last question. We'll still have some time at the end from the audience if you'd like to ask additional questions. So up next we have Antoine Martin.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Antoine. I'm a lifelong resident of the Twin Cities. I'm looking at having my 30th birthday this July, and I actually remember the first time that I ever rode the bus. My big brother took me for my 4th birthday down to Pop's Arcade over downtown. We rode on the gate. It was a blast, and I've loved it ever since. So with the work that I do a lot of running around between South Side, North Side, and downtown. And you know, I move around a lot. Folks who know me know I move around a lot. So I have to figure out like a lot of different bus routes, and some places are easier to get to for me than others depending on where I'm at. Now, there's been a lot of talk from politicians and the Met Council about regional equity. North Minneapolis has been left out of every major development project in the 21st century so far. Looking at a lot of issues with that. Now, with the Southwest Light Rail project, that's a $1.7 billion project, right? That's how I understand it anyway. So we are looking at a lot of ridership in North Side at Van Wyck, Penn Avenue, and Royalston. I want to know how much of that budget, that $1.7 billion, is going to be invested in connecting the North Side to the Southwest Light Rail, and how will that money be spent?
I don't know if Jennifer has a chance to speak on if you'd like to touch on that.
Well, I don't think there's an answer to that yet, because I don't think those allocations, in fact, no allocations have been made yet. The 1.7 billion and growing is the line itself in the stations. We, as the Met Council, have not committed to Eden Prairie or Hopkins or St. Louis Park or Minneapolis about what's going to be done around the stations. Now, when we get to, if we ever get to authorization to do final design by the FTA, then the contingency fund kicks in. But at
What's
this
the
point in
FTA?
time, there is no contingency fund.
FTA.
What's the FTA?
Oh, FTA is Federal Transit Administration. I thought I said FTA. Federal Transit Administration pays for half of this. They pay 50% of that. We have a lot of the same issues, in fact, close to home for me in St. Louis Park and Hopkins, where Hopkins has taken the operation and maintenance facility. They want us to do all kinds of things there to return the tax base they're losing. We can't commit to that as part of this project. St. Louis Park wants all kinds of grade separations at Beltline and Wooddale. We can't commit to that at this point. I know there's some talk about Van Wyck and Penn and Royalston. It's hard to commit to that at this point, but as we get to that final design, then those kinds of monies will be available and kick in. And you see some of that on Central. A lot of that station work over there was not part of the original just transit design, but it's come on board, and I think I just read yesterday, one of the foundations, right? It's going to put in $1.5 million for development around those stations. I expect a lot of that same kind of stuff is going to happen on Southwest, and I guess I would see this area as very ripe for doing those kinds of things. I think the other piece is when Central opens, that whole bus system gets redone to connect to Central. If and when Southwest opens, I keep saying if and when, because I've literally been working on this since 1983. Wow. I think that this whole bus system here and out there along the whole line has to be reworked to coincide with where the line is going. So when you see Central open, you see all kinds of bus changes over there. They're ready. We've already approved that. Yeah. I have to keep looking at these guys. They remember it. So we'll be doing that as part of this development. It's just that this seems like it's taken, well, it has taken a long time. How else can you say it? And we're still not there. We're really close.
Thank you, Jim. I want to add on that.
Yeah, I just want to add, I think whatever happens here, it's important for us to have an agreement in writing as to what it is North Minneapolis is going to get out of this transaction that's going on. I talked to my friends over on Franklin Avenue when Hiawatha came in, and I talked to them again just last week. And there were all kind of promises made, and all kind of stuff that was said, and to date, years and years later, nothing has occurred. So I certainly, my friend Jim is correct, and I certainly honor what he's saying, but if we don't get some clarity about what's going to happen here in writing, you know what? Priorities change, funding streams change, all kind of things change. You know, there was an agreement to take the freight rail out of this corridor. Do people know that?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that freight rail's still going to be there if this agreement goes through as it is. Now, I don't negotiate. I'm not part of that negotiation thing. But I say the community, this is a democracy we're in, folks. Right? Your voice matters.
Yeah.
Right? Your voice at the table matters. And so you need to be at the table with what you think is important for your community in order for things to change. Otherwise, we're going to end up with what we've been getting. And what we've been getting is cold bus shelters. Thank you.
Folks, you've got an opportunity to leverage Southwest LRT to get the equitable outcomes that you want. And there's three groups that have power over that decision. Your city has power over what station area development looks like at Van White and Penn. The county has power to dictate what kind of infrastructure happens. And Met Council has power to decide how frequently the buses connect to those stations. Now, there are people who would say that poverty is a character flaw. It's not. Poverty is about not having access to money. To have access to money, you need access to education and you need access to good jobs. When you look at what happens at those station areas, you need to make sure that those stations maximize your access. That's what you need to do. That's what I'm committed to helping you do. We're working closely with Vicki Moore and the folks in the Harrison neighborhood in order to make sure that the development happens there. Now, it used to be that light rail was about slapping down track to connect A to B. It's a lot more than that. It's about making sure that we're connecting affordable housing to living wage jobs to education so that we can have a region that's opportunity rich. Now, Gary knows we have had decades of disinvestment that got us where we are. It's not going to be easy to reverse that, but we have to make sure that people do what you did today. You showed up, you made your voice heard, you mapped out who has the power to make those decisions. It takes a long time to do a light rail system, but you got to hang with us and you got to be there when the decisions are being made. Those of us who are here today, we're listening to you loud and clear. But there are going to be people after us who carry this project forward. And we need to make sure that we make commitments, that those commitments are in writing, and that the city, the county, and Met Council are all working together to make sure that your stations fulfill their potential.
Response from Octavia, and then we're going to have some time for questions from the audience.
Okay, like all the traffic center, like over on Central, what Jim was talking about, we got reconstruction over there and we're gonna add more over there. But over north, we don't have that. If you look around, just picture the whole north side. That bus stop, transit center that they have on Central for the bus riders, we don't have that. So how about considering putting one over here? The train, it stops at behind Target Field. It don't even come near north side, meaning people have to either catch the bus or take longer routes to get around where they need to go. That train can come all the way through here and give us over north access to go that way. When we don't have the money to pay people, a lot of us don't have cars to drive or the license to get a car to go that way. So we paying people out of pocket a whole lot of money to go this way to work. When we can get the light rail, if it was coming, to take us that way or this way. It's not going in between nothing. So we need that transportation over here also as like going over northeast, we can jump there real quick if we miss a bus and probably get right back on target to catch another bus. So I think that'll be a good consideration too, having a light rail to come through the north and having a good transit center over here also.
I got a lot of people in the audience that want to ask questions, so let's go. Gary is.
Okay, I'll just take it real, I think you're absolutely right. One of the things that happened when we were doing the alignment for the Botno line was there was a big debate about whether it should go down Penn or whether it should go down Ocean Highway, and the eventual deal that was struck was that it would go down Ocean Highway. But part of this, and what we were able to negotiate, was that we would do a study of a streetcar right outside this door here. And the reason that this is important is because these are major infrastructure investments that everywhere you go in the country where they put in a streetcar in a low-income community has transformed that community with economic, jobs, etc. If we had a streetcar right outside here, you could take that from the light rail line down to Target Field right through your community. And because it's fixed rail, people invest, communities invest. So we want a solid, mixed income community filled with opportunity. And if we want that, we have to invest in a network that includes streetcars, both in Minneapolis and St. Paul. And we can't be putting money into a study that politicians come back and say, we don't even want to do it, but we're putting money into it. Now what kind of sense does that make? No, nobody, you know, if we're going to put this investment in and we're going to bypass our community and then kind of touch it on this side with the Southwest, we deserve and we should have streetcars within this community. We should have the Nicollet Central line that's being prepared. These are important investments for the future of our city, the future of our region, the future of our place. And the fact is that I want my kids and my grandkids to jump on that streetcar out there and take it down to the University of Minnesota and graduate from college. Thank you.
This is great. All right, I just want to lay a few quick ground rules for the final section. I see a lot of hands. This is beautiful. We passed out some 3x5 cards at the beginning. We're going to get to a few of those, and then we're going to get to the audience. I see all your hands. I'm going to get to you. And I want to just reiterate that we want to just do question, one answer, because it can go back and forth. And if you've heard your question asked, please don't ask the same or similar question. So we're going to have Dane here, who passed out the cards, just address a few of those, and then I'm going to get to everyone who's had their hand up. I see you.
Okay.
So can everybody hear me fine? Yeah. Perfect. So we got a lot of questions from the audience. The overall theme of those questions kind of relate to issues of transparency and inclusion in the whole transit authority process. But the two that stood out the most were about inclusion of our community members who are the most vulnerable and are often not included in the process of organizing and leading the decisions we make. So this first comment is actually a suggestion. And first I want to direct it to Mike, then I want to direct it to everyone on the Met Council. The suggestion is we should make more opportunities for inclusion of elders and community members with disabilities, particularly mobility impairments, in the organizing process and in the design of solutions in the transit system. So, Mike, how would you respond to that? And then we'll get a response from the Met Council.
Well, I would respond by saying that as far as me reaching out to transit riders, that's a group that I want to engage, because a lot of people who are disabled, they have the hardest time riding the bus, and so I've had some really good conversations with people who are disabled, and I have been trying to engage them in this process. But a lot of the people that even when inviting them to this meeting, transportation was an issue. They would have to have a van bring them here or something like that. And it's a Saturday, and a lot of people, they're not very mobile, so the buses aren't running. And so that was a huge issue with a lot of the disabled folks that I talked to not being able to make it into the room. But I have been reaching out to them, and they're people that I actually sit and have the most in-depth conversations with, because even more so than a regular transit rider, they have way more that they want to see change, just because mobility is already an issue on top of public transportation. So I want to say I want to include everybody in this organizing process, young, old, if you ride the bus.
Immigrant.
Yes.
Thanks, Mike. So now, anyone from the council? Jump in. Go ahead.
I'll say two things. One, we have I think a model that I'm proud that we worked on at Central Corridor, the trusted advocate model, where we have people who are regular riders that are in part of the process, part of informing how that line got built and how some of the service improvement planning happened with the other lines. And we just have to continue to build on that in the future. In Southwest, some of the other corridors we're looking at, and then just institutionalize that at our organization. That's what we're working on. I'll recognize Jill Henches. She'll probably kick me later for doing it, but she rocks that work for us at the Met Council. We're really proud of the strides we've made and the improvement we made in that area. Secondly, I'll say we did a Midtown corridor analysis and alternatives analysis of looking at streetcar in the Midtown Greenway, bus improvements on Lake Street, and the community outreach there got overwhelmingly positive feedback. So again, I think it's the most recent example for us. I think we made a lot of improvement there, and we're going to continue to develop that at the council.
Thanks.
So, this second question,
this is the last one that we're going to get to the audience.
so, this second question, a member of our audience asked it, Sister Pam, if you'd like to ask it, actually, I'll bring the card over to you, but just to preface it, this question pertains to...
I really would like to ask another question.
Okay, so I can ask this.
I'm from the Harrison neighborhood. Okay, we all need to know that in building the light rail, you get federal dollars. Okay, in order to get those federal dollars, you have to engage the community. It's a federal law. So you can't get the money if you don't talk to us. Okay, so I want to know, because in the end, it goes to the powers that be. Everybody knows that the city is against the county. I don't know where the Met Council stands, but I need to know who is really going to stick up for the north side. Like, I know you said that's in your heart, and the gentleman here, he sounds, but it gotta be more than just showing up because it's the law. Who is on our team? Of course you can say, well, show up at the meetings, but we need to know who is really on our team and who we can engage with to get the stuff on paper. Now, the idea of you saying us having an advisory council, that sounds like a step. But we want to figure out, you get what I'm saying? We don't need the false sense of power anymore. We need to be a part of
That advisory council can't come from Eden Prairie or Maple Grove or Lake Elmo. It's got to come from this community.
That's right. Who on the panel?
Well, I'll step up to that.
Okay.
I'll totally step up. I grew up in this community. I lived in this community. I've worked in this community. I've been a part of this community. So there is no question, and I know every street down and up and down these blocks because I ran them as a child. So let me tell you something. Let me say to you something. I hear you, because so often people come into the community, and you know, Stevie Wonder used to have the song that said, "You haven't done nothing," right? You know, people come in our community every 4 years, but I can tell you that one, I'm committed to making a difference for all people of low income. That's what I dedicate my life to. That's what I spend all my waking hours on. In my day job, in my Met Council job, and other work that I do. So at the end of the day, I'm going to argue on behalf of these issues, and if you're not willing to sacrifice something, then you're going to end up with nothing. And so I want to say to you, directly to you and to the other people in this room, I am totally here with you 100%
and beyond.
Everybody's been excited for a while.
Did anybody else want to jump in with and say this?
I'll say the same, I'll echo the same thing. I mean, I represent Minneapolis, but I always told myself, or thought of myself as representing the whole city and having a regional perspective. And I'm here to advocate for the north side and fight for everyone in this community to have a seat at the table for Southwest. I know the city is in the same place. I know people in the county are at the same place, and it's important for us to have a presence in all those areas. I think you identified them exactly right.
First of all, thank y'all for coming, and I come here and I look around Al Flowers. I do community act, do radio stuff, and Adam, if you give us a little more resources so we can do some good political work to make more of our people be in these kind of rooms when you're making decisions about them over there in Minnesota. Just to throw that, I'll throw that at you now, but that's for real. But I would like to say that what Gary did, Gary has said everything that we really want to hear, that I would want to hear as an activist in our community. And I'm so proud of it. I'm really, he touched my heart over here. But it's so important that we have something in writing about what this equity is. Yeah. We're going to have we need to have it in writing this time, because I've seen it so many times in our community, whether it's the empowerment zone, where I argued for years about them, how they did the empowerment zone, which was supposed to uplift the community, and that those funds went a different way. So we need some concrete in writing to really make this happen, and so we can really feel proud of what's this light rail and what it's going to do when it go by us over north, because it's going by us. It's an already done deal. It's going by us. We need those equity things of what Mr. Cunningham is talking about, what Alan is talking about. It's got to be for real. I'm asking as an activist, do not play the Met Council. Do not play with us on this one here, because our life in the African American community, we get bombarded on education. 66% of our kids are not graduating. We get bombarded on housing. All this equity, we haven't got it. So I would say to this panel, don't play with us. Don't come up and have organizations like NOC have a meeting and say I met with NOC and we get nothing out of it. And it's a big African American community, it's a big minority community. We want it this time. Everything we're trying to do now, we want it. I think we in lockstep in the community, the Urban League, the NAACP, working with other organizations. And that's what I want to say as an activist, and this is real. And I didn't have to jump up to tell the meeting up, because this has been perfect. Gary, I really appreciate what you're doing for the community. I'd like to see if we can get y'all on the radio show I got to talk about what what you're doing right now. So we can, but we need it in writing. We need it in writing. We need it in writing. Thank you.
If I can just respond quickly, what you guys have done as the People's Transit Coalition, you've articulated what you need. Put that in writing. Pam, the Harrison neighborhood, what's beautiful there is your entire community has come together with your vision of what you want to see happen at Van White. We need to make a commitment to you that the city, the county, and Met Council are all going to come together and collectively help you get to that vision.
Thank you.
Young lady back, I think it's Nikki. I've seen your hand for a while.
My name is Nikki Mabry. I'm a member of NOC. I'm thrilled at this room. And my question is regarding jobs and economic development in transit with an eye toward equity. We know, and I'm a transit rider, we know that one of the primary requirements for a transit system is that it gets people to their jobs, right? And transit policy advocates in the room know, NOC members know, transit riders know that public transportation systems are powerful economic engines, right? And so I want to know, how are people of color going to benefit from job opportunities that come with transit? And with an eye toward equity, what are the ways in which the expanding transit system will both get people to work and put people to work?
That's right.
Well, folks, here's what we know. In the 7-county metro area, only 10% of the jobs are connected to transit. And only 25% of the residents in the region are connected to transit. We need to do better. Now, there's a proposal right now for a 3/4 cent sales tax that would allow us to double our bus system, to improve the shelters so that you have more clean, safe bus shelters. We need more resources in order to get there. But we also need to think about transit outside of its silo. Transit is about creating opportunity-rich communities where affordable housing connects to living wage jobs, connecting to higher education. If you look at the Southwest Light Rail line as part of the larger Green Line, we've got 14 higher education institutions there. A family that can live along that line has got $10,000 more in their pocket if they don't need a car. That's how much a car costs you every year. Car payments, insurance, servicing that car. If you have 10 grand extra in your pocket, you have the opportunity to move from renting your home to owning your home.
Exactly.
And that's what we're talking about, is making sure that more than 25% of the people in the region have access to transit, so that we connect transit to more than just 10% of the jobs. We connect to higher education so that people have an opportunity to live a better life.
That's what the North Side wants. All that you just said, but you don't have it. You need that.
I'm sorry.
Nikki, follow, and then I gotta get to the other questions. Go ahead.
I appreciate the answer. Jobs for people of color in our transit expansion. Gary, can you take that?
I can. I work in Portland and Seattle, and I work with a group called the Coalition of Communities of Color in both of those places. And one of the things that happened when they built the transit system, particularly in Portland out, was that it ended up gentrifying the communities that the transit went through, because there wasn't a plan for how you would maintain both affordable housing and economic opportunities within those communities. So we can't just transplant everybody out to Eden Prairie like my friend Myron Warfield would suggest. Or we can't just say that people are going to get those jobs. The Twin Cities has Minneapolis, St. Paul has the highest rate of unemployment for African Americans in the country last time we met.
That ain't right.
So we know that there's something going on in the system, because we got a higher unemployment rate than Jackson, Mississippi for black people. Now, we can say everybody's going to get jobs out there, but I actually think we need to grow our own within our community. We need to develop economic opportunities here, and we need these public institutions to support that. Because the reason that they're not here now is because they had a policy not to support that. So here's what I'm talking about. We have entrepreneurs. Here's Neon Grover's sitting right here. We have African American, Latino, Asian, American Indian entrepreneurs that want to grow, but they don't have access to capital. So maybe the council and the county and the city could put together a capital fund to ensure that our folks can actually participate in the marketplace at the same level as everybody else. Right? So there's nothing wrong with the black people in Minnesota. Right? It'd have to be something really weird to go on. There's something wrong with the policies in Minnesota to give these perverse results.
Yeah.
These results are not about the people. These results are about the systems that we're operating in, and we need to change those systems. If we can't, then we will all go down together. As Martin Luther King said, hey, we may have came in different shifts, but we're on the same ship now, and we got to get there from here. Right? And we're not going to get there unless there's a change in public policy in terms of where investments go and how investments go in terms of the long-term competitiveness of this region is dependent. And Sue Haig, the chair of the Met Council, said at the State of the Region that this is the most critical issue of our time in the Twin Cities, is to deal with racial equity within our community. So there, now she didn't use the word racial, I put that on. Folks like to talk about equity, but they don't like to talk about racial equity. And the reality of it is that she's right. And the fact of the matter is, we can't get there with timid kind of plans and try to get us there. We need to actually do something more significant, and we need to start with the Southwest line.
I have two things, and because Councilmember Gary always says it better than me, but two important things to add. One, we're going to build the line. It's going to create 3,000 jobs. And Dakota Congressman Keith Ellison at Town Hall a couple weeks ago, he said, "What's 30? What are the people of color hiring goals and women hiring goals on that project? 30%, hopefully higher, 35." But historically, the last couple lines have been 30. He said, "What's 30% of zero jobs?" Zero jobs. So we need to do, one, we need to have a commitment to do the line, which I think everyone in this room shares to some degree. Secondly, once we have the line operating, there's going to be 150 to 250 jobs of people running the line, and that's something that's on us. And so we've said equity matters to us in how we run the Met Council, how Metro Transit does its hiring. That's what we do at the management committee. We've set some really aggressive goals for hiring people of color and women, and we're meeting them, but we need to continue to do that, and that's, I think, an important piece to highlight.
We have another Metro Transit bus driver, Ryan Simon. I want to let you ask a question.
So yeah, actually, I'm Metro Transit bus driver. On the question you talked about the sales tax, I think I have a question for Met Council. Is there going to be an actual approach to actually taxing corporations instead of sales tax on poor people and working class people in this town? This area has 5 Fortune 500 companies, is the 13th largest GDP in the country. We have money in this city. It's no longer, we can no longer tax ordinary people. And on that, lowering the, is there actually a plan to not put a complete peak fare across the board like they did in New Jersey? They eliminated non-peak. What happened in Staten Island in the 80s is the union actually went out, ATU, Amalgamated Transit Union, actually proved that lower fares can expand transit. And we don't have enough buses connecting northeast to north. You have to go all the way downtown on the 11 line, catch a bus at 7 and go all the way back up. We need to expand to 32. No more outsourcing of Metro Transit. That is not a Metro Transit bus on the 32. Like, when you outsource, you lower the wages of workers. Are we going to change all that? And to be honest, I think the organizing that's going on here is what needs to happen. I think it was pressure put on Met Council that actually got those platforms on the corridor. They were not going to be there until people in those neighborhoods stood up. And what you all are doing here is the right thing. I commend you all.
Response, and then we're going to have a few other comments from Anthony and Mike.
I'm a union guy, come out of the worker movement, I just would say amen. I mean, that's hard to say better than that.
There's a ton of people with their hands up still. I see Harry right here who takes the bus, who's on the video. You absolutely deserve to ask a question. Here's the thing, for the sake of time, we do one last question, a minute or less. Then we'll wrap it up, and I encourage people, by the way, to stay. There's a garden in the back, there's a grill. Don't feel like you have to leave once this is done. Let's continue the conversation. Harry.
All right, I got a question for the Met Council. I do studies when I'm at school, when I'm on break, I do studies. Why is it that the Southwest is getting so much play, but the Botany line is not getting no play, none whatsoever, and the pressure on it? You know, like I see it on the news. Like, they want to front this for the Southwest. They want to do that. But the Botany line has more riders, more committed riders. You got more people in the general area. I done my own studies. I do my own studies. I'm going to school for transportation, transit design and infrastructure. I want to know, why is it that the north side is getting overlooked, either on a busway or on a transit system, a light rail system? Why is it overlooked? Everybody else has one, but the north side. That doesn't make sense.
Great question.
We'll be getting press because the public hearing process just started this last week on the draft environmental impact statement, so we shouldn't be using all these acronyms, I guess. But I don't know if it's going to be as controversial as Southwest or not. Southwest got way more controversial than it needed to be, but that's what it is. Botno will probably get that way, because I went to the public hearing in Golden Valley Wednesday night. Let me tell you, you're gonna be hearing about Botno. For the same kinds of reasons you've been hearing about Southwest. And it's just gonna continue all the way up the line. So keep your studies up. Make sure that you follow that one as closely as this one's been followed, because you'll find it very interesting.
So I'd love to do more questions. That was a great one. We're gonna end on that. I'm gonna try to synthesize real quick, not pride myself on being a member-led organization. So this is it. We're the deciders as far as NOC is concerned. We have allies here, and I mean that sincerely. They reached out to us. They care about equity. We're the deciders. Whether folks know it or not, we're the deciders. So I want to take a quick temp check on some of the things I've heard, and you all let me know if I'm right or wrong. Number one is an advisory panel. The room erupted when Gary mentioned an advisory panel, so that it's not just this group making the decision, but that there are others, including folks in this room, that would be at the table with these folks when decisions are happening. Did I hear that right?
Before you move too fast, the other caveat to that I heard is with decision-making power.
Yeah. Can we add that? Not only an advisory panel, but an advisory panel that's at the table while negotiations are happening and when decisions are getting made.
Yeah.
Did I hear that right? So in the spirit of being member-led, I want to give you just a quick moment to respond. Are you all open to the idea of an advisory panel made up of community members, of transit riders? We can sort out the details going forward, but essentially folks in this room and those who couldn't make it here being a part of the decision-making process.
Can I say something to that? What I am in favor of is that people of color have access and are at the table when decisions are made, regardless of throughout the region on all issues. And right now, there is no mechanism at the Met Council for that to take place that allows for that to happen. Now, there are advisory groups on all kinds of stuff, and there's working groups, but we're not at the table. So that's what I'm for.
Great. And then Adam, did you want to add to that?
No, I think it's a great idea.
It's a no-brainer for me.
So there's a commitment from at least the folks here, and I know you all, you don't represent all the council. 17, but there's a commitment from the folks in the room to try to work through a process to get us an advisory panel of transit riders, people of color, to be part of the negotiations going forward. Outstanding.
Everybody talks about Eden Prairie's getting everything, Minneapolis getting everything, Hopkins is getting everything, which is not true. But those people got themselves organized. They came to the table. They asked to be at the table, and they're there. If you're not at the table, that's your fault that you haven't asked to be there.
Make
public
transit
to be there.
equitable, so we
Just
We're asking to be at the table right now. We're asking to be
You're
at the table
asking and
right
we're
now.
saying yes.
So we asked the question. Hold on 1 second. So in the spirit of what Jim just said, what I heard you say is the people, and I've heard you say this in other rooms, Jim, the people who ask get the goods. You just heard us ask for it. Am I hearing a clear yes from the folks on this panel?
Yeah.
There we go. By the way, that's I don't know if you all know what we just did. Does that exist now? No. We just provided a mechanism for folks in this room to make transit decisions. Give you all a round of applause. That's a big deal. As part of that, the other thing that I heard was there's this Southwest light rail that's being built now. I heard Adam brought up a good point. If it gets built, 3,000 jobs are on the line. It's $1.7 billion. Right or wrong that the governor said he would provide $400 million more in contingency funding.
That's a portion of it.
A portion of it. There's a lot of money. There's a lot of money on the line if it gets built. If it doesn't get built, there's 0 jobs. So folks in this room, just a test. How many folks here think it's a good idea to build an equity line or a light rail line that could provide jobs for the community, assuming we have a negotiating seat at the table? The other thing I heard was how many people feel if it gets built that it doesn't matter if it's built if we're not at the table and we're not part of the decision-making process and we don't get any jobs out of it. So build it and give us access to it is what I'm hearing. Fantastic.
The community benefits agreement is what you call it. Like if we want something in writing, that's called a community benefits agreement.
So as part of the negotiation, I certainly don't have clarity about what those demands would be today. But what I'm hearing is, as part of this negotiation, when we consider a community benefits agreement, you all are in favor of putting us at the table to work that out going forward. Yep. Is that right? Correct. Pam, are you interested in sitting on that panel? All right, we'll figure that out. We'll figure that out after the meeting. I want to thank y'all for coming. Pam brought this question up. I've heard it in other spaces. Not oftentimes brings people together in spaces. I'll admit this. What we have not done the best job of is when we leave the space, making sure that something comes out of that.
Right.
That this just isn't another meeting, that this isn't another box that we check off, that meaningful change comes out of this, systemic change, and the north side is impacted when you build this thing. Am I hearing a commitment to you all one last time for us to be involved, leaving this room, that we can continue the energy in this and be part of decisions being made going forward?
You gotta organize it. We don't.
No, the NAACP and the Urban League will be a part of that organizing.
You all, it's not just not.
Yeah.
Anybody in this room and outside of this room.
Okay, so is the Met Council willing to work with the People's Transit Coalition, Metro Stability, and NOC on this advisory panel, and we'll do the organizing.
NAACP and Urban League.
NAACP, if we organize it, if we organize it, can we be a part of that decision-making process on this advisory panel? I'm glad yes.
Jim says for the fourth time yes.
To be clear about this, we are 4 members of a 17-member body. We can all 4 be for something and they not next. I have been working with my colleagues to set up an advisory committee of people of color to look at that as an option to bring back to the full council. What the shape of that is, I know the Alliance has been working on that, and other advocacy organizations have been working on this. And so the question is where does that go? It's going to take people power in order for that to happen, because it isn't just going to happen. And all our colleagues might not be like us on the council. They all have different opinions. So when we're speaking here today, we're speaking as individuals. The only person that can speak on behalf of the council is the chair. So just to be clear about it.
So point of clarity, they're not the decision makers today, but there's a commitment from these 4, and anybody who's interested in being a part of that process, stay behind after this meeting, see Michael, let's figure out a way to get an advisory panel position so that they can make the case, and we can make the case to the broader group. All right, again, let's continue the conversation. First, give yourselves a round of applause.
What did you think about today?
You know, it was, I think it was interesting. I mean, I think that all the different things that were discussed here, I mean, I think certain things are realistic, certain things aren't realistic, and, you know, I mean, I think it was disappointing in the sense that, you know, we weren't talking about Southwest LRT per se. I mean, it was more so just talking about all these, you know, big ideas that might not ever come to reality, and so I'm a little bit fearful of that, and, you know, hopefully things will come together very well, but, you know, I think, I mean, the big elephant in the room is Minneapolis, right?